Hey y'all, Andrew Reed with the Glitch Cast apparently. Glitch. Is it gonna stop? I don't think so. Oh, it almost stopped. Let's let it buffer for a second. Hey y'all, Andrew Reed with the MushRune Cast. You know, joined by oh my goodness, it's joined by the glitches. Guys, I have no idea. This is like I need a seizure warning. Okay. Well, that's super cool. Hi, y'all. Andrew Reed, Mossy Creek Mushrooms, with the MushRune Cast today. Samantha, I've got it fixed, but had to have it stop recording. And joining me, of course, as you heard me say, is my ever-lovely wife, Samantha.
I promise I didn't touch anything.
She kicked something under the table, I think.
I did not.
You kicked the cables. Hey, Samantha.
Yes.
Go back to your mic for just a second and just talk for a second. Okay. Wow, you are coming through so clear for once.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you must have put some oomph in your voice. Well, y'all, we're getting this down, aren't we? It's getting better. I found out the problem. I was trying to record this so that we could start putting this up on like Spotify and other things. And then for some reason, the recording and the streaming were not playing well together. So, not this episode, but another episode in the future. But hey, y'all, we're going to have a great time. We're talking about Hericiums tonight. Primarily lion's mane, though I want to talk comb tooth and bear's head and, you know, sheep's face, and I don't know what all the other ones are, but... Wow. Someone got Samantha tickled before she got online.
It's the coffee.
It's the coffee?
I've had way too much coffee.
I just flipped her giggle box. So.
There's that.
But we're welcoming all questions on, I mean, pretty much everything. You guys know that. But we're going to prioritize talking Hericiums. There's a lot of really interesting stuff. We've come across some really interesting, I mean, anything from studies to some, you know, like our favorite techniques. And, you know, there's just a lot of cool things to go over. So while we're allowing people, wow, 23 people jumped on already. While we're allowing people to build up, we will just kind of shoot the shit with you guys for a minute. So I think I got her.
You said a bad word.
I don't think I got her eyes flared. But yeah, of course, any questions you guys put in the chat about Hericiums, I mean, we're talking contamination, whatever. We're going to prioritize that. We will, of course, do our Q&A and answer questions that you guys have elsewise. So, Samantha, tell me about Hericium mushrooms.
They look like snowballs, and with all of the snow we've had, it's perfect time to be talking about them.
I kind of felt the same, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of nice. Our grow room's got a bunch of Hericium in it. We're drying Hericium, and then you look outside, and it just looks like icicles and teeth everywhere. So,
yeah, it's a beautiful mirror for sure. The sky absolutely dumped like 8 inches on us, and then the grow room has been just purring along, which has also been awesome because like Ben Dooling from Sporadic just posted some pictures of his grow room, and he's like, hey guys, you know, any chefs want some extra Hericium? They are growing phenomenally, as he posted, you know, having a heater in his walk-in, so which was awesome. I feel a little bit like a wimp dealing with -2 degrees at the moment. So, you know, hey from down south.
Yeah. Well, people from up north don't realize that we don't have the infrastructure to deal with these snow dumps and the ice storms and stuff. So when we get them, they're a big deal to us because nobody here has snow chains or, you know, our power. We don't even bury our pipes deep enough, really, to keep from these kind of hard freezes. So, you know.
Oh, and how lovely it is to have PEX pipe in the warehouse now versus the pipes that burst last year. So our dentist's office got it, our bank got it, like our whole town ended up with burst pipes last year.
Oh yeah.
So I think we're a little bit more ready this year.
I think so. I mean, everything seemed to go a lot smoother. The only trouble we had really was last week when the storms were moving across the country, and we had to do this show in like 3 parts because we kept getting kicked. our signal is as strong as I've ever seen it. So despite all the snow and the power lines and trees and all that kind of stuff, we're rocking out. Someone said, "What is it?" They must be asking about Hericium mushrooms. So yeah, Hericium mushrooms are, if you've heard of lion's mane, that is the big thing. That's kind of what I was hoping Samantha would say. But lion's mane is a type of Hericium mushroom. Hericiums are a genus of mushrooms, meaning not the species, but a higher level. You have Good King Philip crossed oceans for good spices. The good in the spices is species, good is genus. So, what?
I'm impressed. Good job.
Well, it's kingdom, phylum.
I remember all the math ones, but I don't remember the science ones.
No, I remember that one. That was biology was. I always excelled at biology for some reason. So, yeah, King Philip, kingdom, phylum, crossed oceans, clade order, four.
Don't mess up now.
Which is four is family, and then good spices, genus, species. So
good job.
Thank you. But Hericiums are those typically white mushrooms, though sometimes they can be pink, sometimes they can be kind of a yellow color. It really just depends on what stage they're at and the species that's growing. They typically have teeth, though sometimes they can have such small teeth that they don't really look like it until you get up close. And then some can have quite large teeth, but they are primarily globular, so in a globe, or branched, where they'll, form branches on branches on branches. So, and then the primary thing is the teeth. They are a tooth fungus. So that's where all their spore producing structures are. Instead of gills, like a gilled mushroom, they have those teeth that have all the spore producing structures on them.
And I keep saying it, but those little toys with all the little that you put your hand in or your face.
With the pins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what they remind me of.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Especially like bear's head. For sure, like bear's head, where the teeth are so tiny.
Oh yeah, and we've seen such interesting, just fantastically wonderful different structures as well. Like we've had some come in with honeycomb patterns.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some come in with just like looks like little pom poms that
branch comes off.
It's like a branch and a little ball on the end.
Yeah. It actually reminds me.
Why?
It's going to be so nerdy, but this reminds me of. There's another fungal structure called Gonglidia. And it's literally just in a fungus for the atine ants, the leaf cutter ants, the fungal gardening ants. Gonglidia is a structure that basically it's swollen mycelial tips. They swell up with a sweet, sugary, and nutritious substance, and that's what the ants live off of. So they chew up the leaves, mix it with the fungus, make their fungal gardens, and then these Gonglidia grow out of the walls, and then the ants take that liquid and then they share it. I forgot the name of the term for the feeding, but they basically mouth to mouth. They just share the sugary liquid all the way through the hive, and that's how they're able to have such huge societies. I mean, I think they have the largest societies of anything other than us. So,
which is very cool.
Absolutely.
And very fascinating.
But that structure you're talking about is reminds me of that. It's basically those little branches with these little blobs.
Oh yeah, and then you've got the conifer coral. You have so many different types of just Hericium in general with different growth structures, and it's really neat to see them all and to take pictures of them and honestly see some of the artwork that's coming out of just fungus Hericiums, dare I say oysters in this episode. But it's lovely. The visual aspect of it really gets me every single time.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. It really excites me to see. I mean, sure, we can talk about oysters in this episode a little bit. But the amount of phenotypes that we're seeing in oysters being expressed, and then now that we've started a breeding program with Hericiums, not to mention all the wild ones that we've collected, you start seeing crazy different looking Hericium mushrooms. So some that are really feathered and branched, and some that have really thick, lobster tail like branches on them. So you got something to say.
Just someday your comment was just held by YouTube for review, so don't it didn't just disappear.
Whose was?
Someday.
Oh, you're moderator. You can open that up.
Can I go ahead and you can read it, right?
I can't see anything.
Oh, okay.
I'm not actually a moderator on our channel.
Okay.
I need to make myself a moderator, and I'm not in the command center. So
I think that this is safe. I think for our audience. Hopefully it doesn't kick
it's Cameron.
Hopefully it doesn't kick the video.
How unsafe could it be? Video sounds like what? An STD. Yeah, that's super safe. That's fun. And it does kind of. I agree. I mean, it's just because it rhymes with chlamydia. But I mean, if you think about it, there are chlamydospores in in funguses. They have chlamydospores, and what are a bunch of the other ones? Oh, there's literally a mushroom called the hairy panus. It's PANUS, panus, not penis, but it's. It's definitely, look how red she's turning.
You hush.
But fungus is absolutely like, it's got some weirdness to it. So, anyways.
Oh, what's that other one? The veiled oyster. It's also known as
what is it? What is it called? You can't even bring yourself to say it.
No.
What is it? The veiled oyster is called the...
You told me the name, and I was like, I cannot tell the chefs what this is called.
Tell me. I've forgotten.
Dry. I'm not going to say it. It's going to end up being a sound bite that's put into it.
You stretched it out long enough, the AI won't notice now, so go ahead.
It's called a dry anus.
A dry anus. Oh, it's... Yes, dry anus, not dry anus.
Oh, well, I mispronounced that then.
Why? Oh, my goodness. All right, then. Oh, well, this show's getting spicy real quick. Watch our numbers go up, though.
Oh, gracious. All right, just, leave me somewhere else for a moment.
So anyways, going back to Hericiums. So if you drink water or something, she's got to take a second. Anyways, so going back to Hericiums, as I said, most of you that are familiar with lion's mane, that's kind of like the typical Hericium mushroom that we all think of.
I promise to behave myself.
Good. There are lots of other species. In fact, there's some studies that have come out recently that suggest there's either a lot more intermixing between species than we originally thought, or there are far more species of Hericium than we thought, and many of the lion's mane that have been DNA tested. So, lion's mane would have an eye, like the teeth come off, and they're singular teeth. Whereas comb tooth, they have teeth, and then there will be teeth that branch off of the teeth. And that was kind of like the phenotypic difference between the two, right? The visual cues. But then they found that when they test comb tooth, it's not comb tooth. When they test what should be lion's mane is not lion's mane. This actually makes me wonder how much of some of the studies on lion's mane that are bad studies were actually done with a mushroom that had not been DNA tested or tested for any erinacines content, which may be why some of that science comes up as bunk.
That is a really, really good point, as I dry my tears from laughing so hard. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's it means that we know way less about Hericium than we ever thought we did. We thought we had a pretty decent handle on it, and then we found out here recently that it's a taxonomic nightmare. The taxonomy is the science of basically naming things in a scientific way. So if you were that like I was talking about earlier, the good King Philip or King Philip crossed oceans for good spices. that whole idea of where do things fit in that ladder of life. That's what taxonomy tries to figure out. And most of the time, for most of history, we've tried to figure that out by visual cues, mating cues, things like that. And now with DNA, we're finding out that we didn't know anything that we didn't know nearly so much as what we thought we did. And we still don't. We're just barely scratching the surface. For instance, and I'll just go this really quickly, but I would love to talk about this more if you guys have questions on it. But they've gone out and they've done just random core sampling of rotting logs, right, in the forest, and they'll go out and they'll do a grid, and then they'll take these core samples, and they found out that there were far more Hericium. Hericium's kind of considered kind of an endangered or close to endangered species, at least here in the States. In Europe, I think it's classified like as a protected organism. You should not touch it if you see it, because they'll come after you. But it is rare enough in the world that it's been kind of considered going on the red list. And when they went out and they did this coring, they found there were far more Hericiums than they thought would be there. And turned out that it was just in the haploid state. Haploid state means the half organism state, right? It's if you have sperm and egg, those are haploids because they contain half the genetic information. And of course, mycelium, a spore, can land and then start growing, and that can be an organism that's only got half the information to produce mushrooms and to produce spores itself. And they found that, or their thinking is now that Hericium may spend far more of its lifespan as a half organism than what we originally thought. And that may be why we see it as rare, because anyone who's grown it knows that it grows fast, and you can't keep it from fruiting, which is one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. And so it interests me to know that we know so little about it in the wild, for being such a gourmet mushroom to being so potentially medicinally active. Just how little we know about it, and yet how much we're willing to say like we know about it. I don't know. It's just super interesting to me. Now that I've gone off for a while, I figured I'd give you a chance to calm down and read some questions. What'd you find there?
Just whenever you mentioned that, one of the first things that came to mind is, is it so protected because it was so over harvested? And then I was just sitting there thinking kind of the work that we do where, and everyone does, sending samples into us to kind of test and to put in our library and to send them a clean culture back. That cultivation aspect is a part of the conservation aspect, because you can take a very small, minute, needle biopsy of this organism, bring it in for commercial production by farmers, and then you're protecting that wild specimen and where it's at, and you're allowing it to continue to grow and spore and everything else too. So I mean, it just makes me feel like what we're doing is even more special. But
absolutely. I figured it was habitat loss.
I didn't realize that. Well, it does say as well, habitat loss and destruction, heavy harvesting of fruit bodies because of its edibility and for medicinal purposes. There's a few different reasons as to why it's protected, but those are the main two.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in the UK and Europe it's protected. I think in Japan, China, and the States, we're still allowed to harvest it just fine. In North America, most of the habitat, which is mixed hardwood, is going to be in the southeast. You're going to have pockets of it elsewise, and there are species that grow on conifers that are going to be more common in the Pacific Northwest, like conifer coral and things like that.
And I actually hadn't realized how widely it's protected. You have Italy, Austria, Germany, Switzerland. You've got Hungary and Poland. I mean, my gracious, Greece. Like, it's all over the place.
Oh yeah, and it's had such uses in folklore and folklore medicine and gourmet. Like people have been eating it for a long time. It's um,
Well, and that's another
we
thing
don't
is
tend to think of forest peoples so much, but they're I guess because most of the forest peoples areas now are so far developed. But like you've got jungle peoples and desert peoples and people that live in the oceans and or like those boat people. I can't remember what they showed on like Planet Earth or Human Planet. Um, you've got people that live in mountains and canyons and all this kind of stuff, and you rarely ever hear about like the forest people. But like I think probably the largest groups you would have heard of that back then were like the Celts and the Gauls and the Germans and the etc. And nowadays, they're all industrialized. So, which also would coincide with habitat loss for
yeah,
those very things that were considered culturally important.
significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that people of European descent found, or people of European ancestry, whatever, it doesn't matter. People back in Europe a long time ago have valued mushrooms for a very long time. I mean, Otzi the Iceman, was found with at least 3 or 4 different mushrooms on him. So,
Well, it's celebrated culturally across everywhere.
oh,
Really.
absolutely. I never realized that Mexico had such a strong fungal culture until we started selling mushrooms, and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so do you have any questions built up on the chat that you want to hit?
So Blue Ape said, "What was it if it wasn't Hericium?" Kind of referring, I think, back to it maybe not being actual lion's mane. It's not that we were saying that it wasn't Hericium at all. It's just that maybe it wasn't a specific Hericium within a certain aspect of being a Hericium.
Okay.
Just want to clarify that real quick. But at the very beginning, we ended up with a few kind of statements and questions of every so often I'll harvest a head, and then the substrate behind it has a clear slime where it was growing from.
Okay.
To me, I think that I have seen what you were talking about, and whenever I harvest it, and you pick it off, and I'm very, very careful because you'll end up bruising the absolute heck out of it, and it'll look like a Dalmatian gone wrong. But whenever I pick that, it has such fine, wispy mycelium, and the humidity that mycelium has, it'll uptake the humidity and it'll hold on to it somewhat. Whenever I've picked that and I've seen that kind of sheen, I automatically think that it's mycelium. That's kind of the first instinct in my mind. Is that's just wow, how interesting and how cool that inner webbing is just so intricate inside of it. But I really think that is just that sheen, that kind of slime that you're seeing is really just a refraction of the light against the humidity that the mycelium has collected. Personally.
Okay, so what you're talking about there, I've definitely seen that. I know what you're talking about there.
And then what causes bear's head to be easily turn black with handling when young, but when mature it's completely fine. Also with the same exact conditions, lion's beard is doing just fine.
So if we're talking like it's turning black and going slimy, that's Black Death.
Now, from what I understand, it's when you pick it young and you handle it, it can turn black.
Oh, it's the bruising.
And then whenever you pick it when it's mature, it's just fine. But lion's beard, grown, I guess, side by side, does just fine with picking.
To me, bear's head bruises way easier than a lot of things. That's one of the reasons why you and I have always talked about how when we teach people, we always teach them to bring their hands behind the cluster. And you can, we cut a single slit and then put it sideways so that there's plenty of horizontal structure to hold the mushrooms up because hericiums get quite large.
And I am literally with my gloves on, I'm taking my hands, and you have that slice right there, and it's grown out, but you created this really thin line to where it almost hinges, the fruit body hinges on the bag. Mm-hmm. So I'm coming in and grabbing that, and then I'm flipping it down to where I'm holding it like this. I'm not actually touching it at all around that kind of orb. Yeah,
you don't want to touch the front because it just bear's head bruises so easily. Bear's head's one of the best hericiums, in my opinion, to grow, or at least the commercial bear's head that we're all growing, because it is so productive, so sweet. I when chefs tell me they want lion's mane, a lot of times I was like, okay, bear's head's what they really want. They really want that instead.
Well, and it's really fluffy. To me, it has just a really tender kind of fluffy texture to it, whereas lion's pride or lion's mane it's more dense. It's a little, it's a bit more solid whenever you slice into it. Something else that I do whenever I pack the cases, whenever I'm holding that fruit body, I'll put it in the case and I'll put it kind of tipped up sideways to where inside that box of the case, everything's kind of looking a little bit like a V almost. But it is round. But that way you keep it from rolling. And then I'll be able to fit maybe, 3 or 4 clusters in there kind of in a row. And it just looks like little loaves of bread.
Yeah, it's quite attractive, yeah.
And whenever you're taking that block and you're cutting across it, it's what, like 7 inches? Maybe 6, 7 inches that you're going to cross?
Just maybe, like, I always say about 6 or 7 inches. What I always tell people when I was training our employees was to do the shaka.
Yeah.
Do the shaka. That's about how long you want that cut to be.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite, like, it goes all the way up and down the side of the bag. Like, when the bags are vertical, just cut that big slit. And then you compress all the air out with the filter patch facing the bag, flip it on its side, and then put it on the shelf and then slam it to where the top gets all the air compressed out of it. So.
Well, I think, too, something you wanted to talk about tonight was colonization time and what to look for as far as colonization and when to plant. Is it too early for that? Or?
No, I mean, we can talk about that a little bit. I just wanted to make sure we got some of the early questions out of the way first. But, yeah, I mean, Hericium tends to grow very wispy compared to most other gourmets that we grow. I would say closest to anything, it'd be more like golden oyster or chestnut mycelium. But way wispier than that even. Like sometimes, you'll have a bag of spawn, it's completely grown in, and it just looks like a bag of loose spawn. Like you'll have to really look closely and you'll see this like slight spider webbing all the way through the bag. And I've noticed that it's like Hericium sends out exploratory mycelium, just really light, really deep penetrating mycelium. And then what will happen is it'll colonize the entire bag quickly. And then you'll come in like the next day and the whole bag will turn white, where it is filling in the gaps. But before it does that, a lot of times it'll start fruiting. And so, our colonization time for Hericiums is something like a week to 10 days. From liquid culture to a bag of spawn ready to go.
You put it right behind me too, didn't you?
I did. That's Tribbles right behind you.
Okay.
It's not in all focus, but actually if you guys see those bags right behind Samantha, they don't look ready on camera. Those are going in the grow room tomorrow. Those are absolutely ready to go.
Maybe right here. You can kind of see.
There you go. That's perfect. Now you guys can probably see it. But that's... those are ready to cut and go right in. And what I want to do is I want to beat the primordia formation. If you've got primordia forming randomly throughout the bag, and then you try to give it one space to grow out of, those other primordia will die off and then start to rot in the bag, or can start to rot. I guess I should say can, because it's not a done deal. It's just less than ideal.
Oh, and right here,
you can see some of the primordia forming.
It's starting to fruit already. So if you can beat it before it does that, that makes it a bit easier. And then also something that I do as a trick is I will actually...
Make sure I was going to say microphone.
I will actually take the bag and I will press in against it and compact this sawdust. And then I'll spread the Germ-X, spray alcohol, choose it, and whatever one, it doesn't matter. And then take a clean blade and then slice it across is what we do. So,
yep.
Hopefully saying that word isn't too aggressive.
But what I have found is that it minimizes the Black Death, any of the leakers. We get bags sometimes that we call leakers, or zombie bags. And that's just bags that are like, they're going to infect all your other bags. Especially the Black Death, which Black Death is definitely a contact kind of thing. But
so Chris Chris has said that he made his oat grains too dry and the mycelium started to grow but stopped. Do you think adding some straight uninoculated LC to it could bring it back to life or just toss it? I did make a bit of a dry batch the other day, and really what happened is it was so cold that the grain, all the water in the grain froze, and so I was chucking ice chunks trying to keep the bags from being so saturated. So I was just chucking out the ice chunks and ended up with some slightly dry grain, and then Andrew and I just poured 60 milliliters into the...
Yeah.
And it worked, and it came in really fast. So.
In fact, if you have liquid culture of the same strain, what I would do is instead of using blank LC, I would use the same liquid culture you did before and just oversaturate the bag. Like, you can open it back up, and I'm going to tell you that every time you open the bag, as you know, it's a risk, so this is more of a risky procedure than if it had gone right the first time, of course, but less than ideal is what we work with on a daily basis. So... open her back up and then inject her with another 10, 20, 30, 60 mils of liquid culture.
Well, and if you're unsure and you're going to chuck it anyway, why not get an answer? Why not experiment and play, So that's the way I kind of see it. And we've had other people talk to us about doing 60 mils, and they had really good experiences with it. So we tried it, and it worked phenomenally well.
Yeah, I mean, we hired somebody for a little while, and that's what they were talking about doing, so we just started doing it ourselves and found out that we really did like it. So, I saw that Jordan's on. What's up, Jordan? I was actually, speaking of Hericiums and Jordan, he sent me a Hericium sample from New York that I'm not exactly sure where exactly, but he sent me a couple of them. But one of them, the first one he sent me, is already gone to grain, will be going into fruiting blocks really soon. So that's kind of exciting. I've got that one, the New York Hericium, the Nightwalk Hericium from the Georgia Mushroom Festival that we did, and then 3 Hericiums from the Albright Grove, the old growth forest that we went to in September? I think it was October. I think we went to the Albright Grove in October. That whole time period, it was just festival after festival and trip after trip, so it's kind of a blur. But I've got all 5 of those samples going to grain, or going to fruiting blocks like in the next few days.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was after the Georgia and the Oklahoma trip, because I remember this distinct feeling like I was sitting 24/7 to, oh my gosh, 22,000 steps, I'm about to die.
No, it was Georgia Mushroom Festival. We came back. We did a mentorship. Immediately after that, we did the old growth forest. And then we went to Oklahoma Mushroom Festival. And then we came back and immediately did the Mossback get-together that we always do here every year. For the people in the Discord.
Oh, that's true. I had forgotten about that one, too. Yeah, October was crazy. Plus, everyone in Andrew's family's birthdays are all in October.
My mom and my son both have birthdays in October, so... yeah, it was a blur. But we got some really cool Hericiums going in the mix.
Much to celebrate.
Much to celebrate, yes. Indeed. Well, what else you got for me, babe?
What's up with the balding on some fruits? Half will be toothy and the other half will be smooth, or like half bald on the mushroom.
Oh, are we talking about like on the top or just on the actual mushroom itself? Like
I have seen it where it's been ridiculously poofy on top and kind of like pink and then toothy on the bottom. I've also seen it like split half and half to where it's sort of extra toothy on one side. Kind of like with oysters where you'll get a really tiny pin set, and then you'll have another pin set that lags behind. So you'll have like a finished fruit and then pin sets all in one go.
Oh yeah. So
I don't know why they do that.
Well, that's just from what I understand. It's kind of like planting too many carrots close together, and so you go and you pull every other one of them so that your carrots are larger, whatever.
I have noticed sometimes you'll get pin sets or fruiting with the Hericium along the cut line first before
Yeah.
you'll get it on that smooth, dry part.
That's absolutely correct. Most, from what I've seen, oysters, most things, like, there used to be a technique where people would take king oysters and then take their hand with the bag and scratch the top of the block. And then they found that they got better fruiting from that scratching when they top flushed. Now, of course, when we don't top flush, we just cut. And then, like I told you before, like, I always prefer using a pocket knife or something that's got like a good 2 or 3 inch blade. And then I'll sink my entire blade into that block and then cut. And I found that where I cut, we typically got primordia formation, pinning, and then fruiting from the cuts faster than any of the bare areas. Excuse me. I don't remember. I don't remember. My mind went blank. ADHD kicked in. Where am I? Who am I? What am I doing? So, we were going to go through a little bit. Let's go through a few more questions if there are them.
Yeah.
And then we have a short video to go over as well.
All right. Well, is lion's mane usually wispy on agar, or does it get rhizomorphic?
Oh, it stays wispy for the most part. I don't think I've ever seen Hericium get really rhizomorphic. There might be some thicker bundles, like mycelial bundles, that you see occasionally, but for the most part, it stays pretty wispy. The problem with Hericium is that there are always exceptions. And so the balding, actually, that was something I was going to talk about real quick, was, so like with the balding, Hericium is very, very environment dependent. So if you get a lion's mane and you starve it for oxygen, it grows branched, like a comb tooth will. So if you have comb tooth and lion's mane right next to each other in the grow room, they've got plenty of oxygen, you'll definitely see one branches and one doesn't. But if you take that same lion's mane and you put it in too humid conditions, it'll get this almost like bubbled, warped, spongy look to it. But if you put it in too high of CO2, it gets branched and starts to branch and make these weird shapes. And so Hericium is very plastic, as in it responds drastically to the environment. And it's also, from what I can tell, we actually don't have that many strains in cultivation. So like all these wild strains that we're collecting are wildly different from each other on the plate. They're wildly different than each other in smell and texture and timing. So it's going to be interesting. So our hard and fast rules that we've got for going with Hericium, maybe some of that stuff will change as we're learning more. But for the most part, it's going to be wispy, and the balding is going to be environmental.
So what if you oxygen starve an already branched one? Like, does that... I'm envisioning
I imagine,
weird albino spaghetti, like angel hair spaghetti.
Well, our strain Fractal.
Yeah?
Like that. Is probably... A lot of people have actually been telling me, so they'll buy Fractal, and then they, from our picture online where it's very, very, very branched, they expect it to be very, very branched. But apparently, when we grow it, and other people grow it and give it tons of oxygen, like oyster mushroom amounts of oxygen, which Hericium doesn't need that much. That's one of the reasons why I think that Hericiums are really good for people who live in really hot or cold climates, because you can really slow down your airflow. But apparently, if you give the Fractal oyster amounts of fresh air, it grows like a lion's mane. It grows like a dense ball. Which is very interesting because we didn't have that for the longest time until we started growing oysters with the Hericiums again. So yes, Samantha, I think that you could make it.
I'm going to try it. We're going to see what this does. We're just going to we're going to do all the things.
That sounds good to me.
So Lars Larson said, in regards to Chris's question earlier about the LC and the dry grain, he's like, you could just add more sterile water.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, you could. I didn't even.
you could. Yeah, you can just sterilize some water and add it. But most of us, I always keep a jar of sterile water on hand. But I've noticed most people don't. So
So Vance has asked, how do you avoid the yellowing that occurs on the top of the fruit in the grow room? Less moisture?
so yellowing is caused by a few different factors, and it's going to depend on several different things. But yellowing can be a sign that the mushroom is mature. If it's happening before you expect it to be mature, it can be too intense a lighting. Well, Samantha and I like to joke about it because Hericium's so easily bruisable that it can be bruised by light, which I think is hilarious. But it could be drying out. It could be humidity droplets landing on it. Or it could be bacterial. So there's a few different things for the yellowing. So the first thing is it dry and yellow? Well, then it's probably drying out or bruising. If it's slimy, it's probably bacterial. And if it is, the rest of the mushroom is firm, but that yellowing starts to feel a little hollow, that's often a sign of your mushrooms getting past the point of maturity. So I hope that helps. Samantha, what else we got?
I'm trying to find a translator. Hold on. Okay, well, we'll skip.
Let them translate. You can go ahead and focus on the questions.
Okay. So John just said I was on a job in an area I live in and spotted a lion's mane. The guys I was working with thought I was weird for being so excited. That is not weird at all. That's just like
well,
awesomeness.
Yeah, but I know that weirdness. So, well, Samantha and I had taken the kids to her grandmother's house out in Granger County, which is a little bit more wooded than where we live in Jeff City. And as we were driving home, we noticed these gigantic pheasant's back mushrooms coming off this tree. So we just stop in the middle of the street. Collier jumps out, goes running over, grabs those mushrooms and takes off with them, like just rips them off the tree and comes bounding back in the van and jumps in. And apparently there was an old couple sitting on the porch, and Collier said he heard the guy going like, "What was that? Did he really take that mushroom?" or something like that. Like, people don't understand how excited we get about it. If I had known the guy was there, I would have stopped and asked. Honestly, I just thought that there was nobody there. But you've gone quiet, Samantha. Co-host with me.
Okay. Sorry. You just said you gone quiet. I was like, well, what response does that? What do I say?
The next question.
Become quiet again. So you can break up a block and add it to more bags of pellets. I've done it a few times. No issues. Works fast. But if you keep doing it, the genetics can go off. So you'll need new genetics every few reuses.
What's this?
Chris mentioned this, as a statement, not necessarily a question.
Oh,
but
gotcha.
I do think that that's kind of an important topic and point. Mm-hmm. We'll make masters and then we'll go grain to grain, for our own production and kind of speed things up a little bit. And that's a really good way to quickly, buy time.
Oh, for sure.
You also have to be careful not to inoculate grain to grain too much because the bag will get hot. Kind of like if you take an entire 5-pound bag of grain spawn and you just throw it in like 5 blocks, it'll end up sweating itself to death essentially.
Yeah, you can get it to overheat in the core, especially if you're growing big old bags like we do. The smaller bags are a little bit more efficient at shedding heat.
And do you have any tips on helping comb tooth not fall off of the blocks? Those must be some mega fruit bodies you've got there, Jake.
I will say that once you start getting strains that are like 3 or 4 pounds, it's really hard to keep them from falling off.
It's almost nice to have the vertical shelving that we do with the side fruiting, because the way our shelves are built, they do have a little bit of a tension to them, and we'll do five blocks across, and they will tension hold one another. And then additionally, whenever they start to fruit and become heavy, they're pressing down on one another. And then the fruit bodies almost kind of slightly, just ever so slightly, grow into one another. So you kind of have this like lattice network a little bit, somewhat. It has gotten to the point though where Andrew and I both will be in the grow room picking, and then I'll be picking one, and the other one's coming along with it. So I'm like, "Hey, Andrew, come save me!" You know, come. We'll pick both of these together, or I'll pick two together, and he'll pick two together, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's
that bigger
fun.
cut too, though. I mean, that's why we went to that large cut.
Yeah, and there's that too. So you can kind of try both of those maybe and see if they'll help you. But I think it's every farmer's kind of expectation somewhat to lose a few fruit bodies on the floor here and there, and of course you can't sell those, and so I mean it's a bit of a bummer and a bit of a loss. But oftentimes we'll throw ours in the compost pile, or we'll eat them ourselves. Like I'll just tear off the part that hit the floor. Oops, and I'm smacking other things. Anyway, just pick it earlier too. It's better to just pick it earlier whenever it's lighter instead of lose it in the morning.
Well, and that's something else. What we'll say about Hericium is nothing produces like Hericium. It is the weirdest thing to me, but we have cataloged blocks that produce more weight in mushrooms than the 12 pounds that the block was originally. If you let it sit there and just continually put out weight, I'm convinced because of that, and there's only one way that can be happening, is that the Hericium is literally pulling humidity out of the air. That's the only way that it's getting any more water. So and that's the only way that I can imagine that it's getting that kind of weight. You look like you're engaged.
Yeah, well, I was listening to you and reading at the same time, so I was...
No, you're fine.
Splitting my brain. So...
You had a look of interest, so I was like, okay, well, what's so interesting?
Well, the fact that you were like, okay, you can lower humidity and make them lighter, so they can grow bigger but be lighter. It's a... Fair enough, yeah. That was clever. Do you...
real quick. Larson... I want to talk to you then, because I am very interested in plant tissue culture and have played around with it a little bit, but not in the actual cloning of stuff, just like seed washing and things, and then growing some sterile plants out. But I have some endophatic fungi trials I want to run, and for that I need some sterile plants. So we should talk, because I want to learn that skill.
Oh yeah, I do too. It's fascinating. In fact, I saw a tissue culture mentorship that I just like ran over to Andrew and showed him. Do you remember?
Yep. Oh yeah.
And I was like, look at this. And I was like, maybe we could take these, and then we can kind of incorporate it somewhat in our own mentorship on how to symbiotically pair, funguses with the tissue, the plant tissue culture. And so I was just like, I was super excited about it. But yeah, it's really neat. And of course, our office has plants everywhere. In fact, every time I get birthday money, I go and buy a new plant.
Yep.
We have everything all over the place, more than what we should. So Chris has said that his watercolor oyster, this is kind of off topic as far as the Hericiums, is a beautiful orange color on the grains. It looks amazing to me and very healthy. Is it normal for watercolor on grain? Is it really like super grown out, climbing up the bag grown out, and it's liquidy because
the metabolite on watercolor is absolutely very orangey. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just did Duckworth. You're getting a lot of watercolor. And we just planted quite a few watercolor in our grow room, and it did phenomenally well. I actually wish I'd taken a picture of the box that we picked for someone today, but it's beautiful. You will not be disappointed.
John, John's forearm. That name always gets. I really hope it's not like your actual last name, and then I'm sitting here thinking that you're saying it's John's forearm. But anyways, I've seen several commercialized farms using your all's shelving design with the 2x4s and PVC pipes. Whose design was this? It was a combination of mine and Benjamin Erickson. Ben now owns Man of War and makes the Thor bagger. We originally were making some slatted shelves out of wood, and then found that we started talking about it, and we had some contract growers who we walked through building a grow room, and basically we made the blocks, they grew the mushrooms, and then sold us the mushrooms back, that kind of thing. Wasn't my favorite arrangement, but they built all their shelving and everything out of PVC, which was cool, but Ben and I were like, that's just so expensive. So Ben and I started talking about it, and then Ben said something about replacing some of the joints with 2x4s, like a cross, I think. And then I think I was the one that said, well, what if you just get one 2x4 and go vertical? You can have, or maybe that's reversed. I can't remember. Anyways, Ben and I were just going back and forth. So there's some sort of combination of my ideas and Ben's ideas in there to make it really cheap. But I will tell you, one of my favorite memories, one of my favorite things ever was we were starting the YouTube channel, and people were starting to imitate the shelving, and that was cool and all. But I was going through Instagram, and as I was going through Instagram, hey, grab my red towel while you're there. Sorry, anyways, while I was scrolling through Instagram, I saw this farm. I'd never heard of this farm, and I saw a picture, and I was like, how in the hell did these people get in my grow room? Because it was one of my strains on one of my shelves. I just knew it. And then I started looking at it, and I was like, I have no connection to these people. I think we looked it up, and they had bought from us. But other than that, they didn't really know much about us. And it was so cool to me that, because I talked to them and they said, oh yeah, we got this shelving idea by looking at so-and-so's farm. And then that's how we found out about you, is we asked them about the shelving, and they said, well, they got it from you. And I was like, our shelving idea has grandbabies now. So that was one of the coolest things in the world to me, was that whenever I was going through Instagram and I thought somebody was in my room, and it wasn't. It was just that one of my strains, at that time it was King Blue, it was the only strain that had gotten popular at that time. And our shelving idea had actually gone through, and that's when I was like, oh my gosh, we're actually changing, we're making a change. We're actually helping people produce these things, better quality mushrooms for cheaper, in their basements, garages, etc. So that was one of my most favorite memories as far as all of this stuff goes. Okay. Is DMT bad? I don't know. I've never had it, except every night when I go to sleep, as everyone has. So I don't know. That amount hasn't bothered me. I don't know how much other stuff would, but I'm not really a huge psychedelics guy. I've only never had mushrooms. So yeah, thank you, Lars. Yeah, we need to contact me through the website or something like that. We'll get together. Maybe I can exchange some knowledge or something for knowledge, or strains for knowledge or something. Been doing some banana plant tissue culture stuff. I don't have the patience for it. Really? So you have the patience for mushrooms but not tissue culture? That kind of worries me a little bit. Maybe I don't either. As far as I know, it's not a good idea to symbiotically grow fungi and tissue culture, but I read a study about a fungi they found in a plant TC lab that makes a smell that makes plants grow faster. That's interesting. Well, I'd like to still do some trials. I think that we could make some things work, but oh, did you have to go get a jacket? It is getting a little chilly. Like, you can feel the temp dropping out there. And then let's see.
Where we at? What I missed?
MCM Polyozelus culture? That would be crazy. I'm not sure. Jake's referencing something. I'm not sure. I must have missed something. But, well, I'll tell you what. Since we're right about at the hour mark, we'll just do a little... What?
I should have waited. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Since we're right about at the hour mark, I'll just go ahead and play. We got a short video for you guys. We've actually talked about some of this stuff, but we'll just go through the short video real quick, and I will return. Welcome to a special episode of Mossy Creek Mushroom's MushRune Cast. Today, we're exploring the fascinating world of Hericium mushrooms, a mushroom that is easy to grow, yet challenging to master. Hericium mushrooms, known for their unique, tooth-like appearance, snow-white complexion, and delectable taste, are white-rot saprobes, placing them in the easy-to-grow category like oysters. But don't let that fool you. They have traits that can test even seasoned cultivators. For starters, Hericium mycelium is wispier and thinner than what you'd find in most oyster mushrooms. They colonize quickly, yet their growth can be deceivingly subtle, often requiring a closer look. Interestingly, Hericium can start forming primordia in your spawn or blocks prematurely. This often indicates that the spawn is past its ideal usage phase, presenting a unique challenge, as you really want to use up that spawn or initiate your blocks before there are lots of little fruits everywhere. Cloning Hericium from fruit also comes with its own set of quirks. It tends to continue fruiting rather than trying to revert to a vegetative growth, a trait that requires patience and careful cultivation. One tip we've found is that Hericium responds exceptionally well to the agitation of liquid culture, adapting faster to it than it does to agar culture. Once you reach the fruiting block stage, the rewards are bountiful. Healthy blocks can fruit repeatedly, producing an astonishing amount of mushrooms, sometimes more by weight than the block itself weighs. However, watch out for a unique contamination we call the Black Death. This causes mushrooms to stall, turn brown or black, and even start to ooze. This ooze will drip on blocks below, and the infection can easily start spreading to other mushrooms upon contact. Curiously, it seems to start only with Hericiums, but can infect other species once it's matured. Growing Hericium mushrooms is a journey of discovery and adaptation, each step offering valuable lessons in the art and science of mycology. And thank you for joining us at Mossy Creek Mushroom's MushRune Cast. Keep exploring, keep learning, and as always, y'all, keep spawning culture. Welcome back, y'all. And welcome back, Samantha.
Thank
from
you.
your journey to a jacket. Thank you very much for the watching the video, guys. And Chris is already saying it's nice, so thank you very much for that. And I just kind of wanted to go over some slight basics with Hericium, and hopefully there's a little small clip that I can then just post to Instagram or something like that, so people can kind of get a small idea of, you know, what we talked about in this 2-hour session that we do. So, let's see, Samantha. I think there was a question you said from Vance. Did you find it?
Now you put me on the spot.
He was asking about mold or something.
Yeah, is the white stuff floating on the inside of an LSD jar always mold, or can it sometimes be mycelium?
Oh, it can absolutely be mycelium. I mean, that is actually called a pellicle. You see it in kombucha, vinegar, things like that. What that is the fungal part of the culture, usually. And because in vinegar and things like that, you're not agitating everything. A pellicle just grows on top, but it's a fungal body. In fact, a lot of times what we do is after we empty a jar, because we have 321 cultures in liquid culture right now.
And one stir plate?
And one stir plate. We actually have pellicle. What we found is that if you stir early and often in the culture, and then once it eats up the sugars and goes into stasis, you don't really need to worry so much about stirring it all the time. But you won't get the pellicle so much then. But if you don't stir it regularly through the early growth period, you'll definitely get strong pellicle formation. So what we do is we just empty the jar, And don't ever get a pellicle and post a picture of it. You'll get all kinds of people talking about how unprofessional you are. Oh my goodness. Like somehow the fact that it developed a skin is, a bad thing. But what we do actually is we use it as an advantage. We empty the jars, and once the jar is empty, we flip the jar over, get the magnet stuck to the lid, bring it back down, open that jar in front of the HEPA filter, and just pour that whole pellicle right in a bag.
I call it a puck.
A puck, yep.
Because as you every time you stir it, especially whenever we're working with 1,000 milliliters. Sorry, I harken back to the days that I would hand my dad tools. But yeah, 1,000 milliliter jar. It takes us a little while to get through, especially with so many cultures. But oftentimes I see it as a point of healthy growth personally, because you'll see the spores growing and you'll have this little glob of spores, right? And then you'll have just beautiful clear LC. It'll all separate, and then you'll have that mycelium growing across the top of the liquid, and you'll even see it growing up the jar size. And every time I pull a couple of syringes, or I'm doing an LC test just to test it, make sure it's looking good before I send something out, each time I do that, I'll whip the jar. I'll put it on the stir plate, or Andrew will, and then we'll stir it for a little while to where it's easier to draw into a syringe. But you'll see that little just thin layer. You'll see it bunch up, and it'll start becoming this circular thing.
Okay.
And it'll get thicker and thicker and thicker, and more circular and thicker, and it ends up being like this little flat biscuit. And that's what you're essentially throwing into the grain spawn. And I've never seen grain spawn grow in so fast in my life.
No, that puck spawn, as Samantha calls it, is it grows in like a grain to grain transfer.
And if I can't get the flippin' little stir bar stuck to the top of the lid, it'll go into the grain too, and then I'll take it kind of on the corner of the plastic, and I'll walk it up and seal the corner with the sealer, and I'll just cut the corner out and cut that little piece, the little stir bar out with it, and it's not the end of the world in case it accidentally
Is that what those little corner cuts on the bags are?
No.
I've always wondered with those. Sometimes we have these bags with the corners cut out and then resealed.
Never.
And we have a magnetic little picker upper thing, and you can use it on the outside of the plastic, and it just zoop right out.
I don't know. I guess to me that's just one more point of accidental land. I would rather just go ahead and seal it, and then push it up, and then seal it again.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean that works.
I don't know.
No, that's fine. It's just your way is probably safer. Actually, I just. You know me, I'm fast and loose, so. But
you just take that little, once you sealed it and you're shaking it, before you shake it really well, then you'll take that little biscuit and you'll just, in the plastic, you'll just break it up and smush it and.
Biscuits.
It's a mycelial biscuit.
Oh my gosh.
You're gonna cook it now? You're gonna deep fry it?
No, gross, no. I tried to make oyster mushroom tempeh with beans, and then tried to fry them up, and it just smelled like burnt hair. So burned mycelium just smells like fried mycelium just smells like burnt hair to me. So no, but
I didn't think it was that bad, especially with there were some of them that the beans weren't like cooked all the way, or
they were
softened
like
all the way,
pressure cooked and sterile. Anyways, the point is.
We have pictures of all of this somewhere. We'll have to share it next time.
What I'm thinking about doing is, those garlic cheesy biscuits I make on the smoker?
Yeah.
I'm thinking now, like, oyster mushroom or enoki powder mixed into the biscuit dough. I could make savory oyster mushroom biscuits.
Dried enoki, by the way, smells just like freeze-dried bananas.
Oh my gosh, the golden enoki smells so good. So good. So John said buttermilk biscuits with sausage gravy. Oh my goodness, yep. Oh my gosh, I'm hungry now. I want breakfast food.
So another question, Jerome has asked, can I bulk pasteurize my substrate with steam rather than sterilize for lion's mane?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you can do that with oysters and all kinds of stuff. Lion's mane is one of the toughest and fastest growing, um, one of the toughest and fastest growing species I know. And so a lot of times people get away with undercooking their sub. I'm not. I'm not recommending that. Excuse me. I'm just saying I've seen people do it. Like take hardwood fuel pellets, put them in a bucket, and then pour boiling water to hydrate them, and then just inoculating that. I've seen people do that, and hericiums are one of the few things that will actually produce pretty well on unsupplemented sawdust. And log grows, like if you're going to grow them on logs outdoors. What made that face?
I'm not saying it.
No, it's not saying it.
So Jake Wolves said that I've never had black death on my fruits, wondering if it's something common in the U.S., hopefully not jinxing it. I have really only seen it in the summer whenever we're struggling with like 90 degrees.
Yeah, it's really a summer thing for us. And I do think that there is something to be said about there being regional contaminants. We did a study with king oysters a while back where we grew out several different strains, and everyone else had been growing the Kong strain from North Spore. And it's a great strain. The Kong strain is a really good producer, but everyone was getting blotched all the way across the country. And I think that there was just an endemic bacteria that strain happened to be weak to, that for some reason, whatever environmental climate conditions we were going through seemed to be having an explosion in population. So, I mean, we ended up growing 5 or 6 different strains side by side.
Yeah, we basically took out a chunk of money from profits that we had made, and we purchased almost every strain that we could get our hands on.
Yeah, back then, which
from
wasn't
everybody.
very many. Yeah, but
and I think there was one we even paid like $200-300 for just a petri dish of it.
Yeah, that was from Aloha.
Yeah, and it was. I don't think I'd ever spent. I would never even spend that much money on a pair of like shoes and jacket and whatever else. And so to me, that was an insane amount.
But in that study, we found that there were, the Kong strain absolutely blotched, another strain blotched, a couple of strains kind of, some blotched and some of their blocks held up okay, and some were a little blotchy. And then there was one strain in particular, it's the King strain we use now, that had very little, had like no blotch problems whatsoever, and it was growing right in that whole mixture. The problem with this strain is that it only grows really big kings. Like it doesn't do like the small kings like the Kong. So the one thing, the nice things about Kong from North Spore is that it produces a lot of medium-sized king oysters. But
that's a lovely strain.
It is a lovely strain.
Yeah.
But it does seem like it might have been a little weak to that particular strain of bacteria. However, the strain we grow now, our king oyster strain, grows these giant kings. I mean, if I put my hand in the cap is way bigger than my hand. I've got, like my forearm-sized king oyster. I mean, there's literally a picture with my hand on top of that mushroom, and that mushroom weighs like 3 pounds by itself.
It was nice, but I mean, it's, I don't know. I personally don't prefer like a huge one like that.
I don't either, and that's what I'm saying. Is that,
and it was almost like it would self-select and self-abort everything else too,
right,
which had its own issues.
Yep. And so there are strengths and weaknesses to all this stuff, but that's what I'm saying with the Black Death, and you not having experienced it. It may be that it is a regional thing. Maybe it's more on this continent than in Asia, or maybe where you're out there on the Altai. I'm not actually sure that you're on the Altai, but but that's like the only thing I know about Mongolia is the Altai Plains. So, but it may be that you don't have the Black Death, and or maybe it's carried a different way, and therefore it's in the American infrastructure somehow. I mean, there's a lot of questions to be asked and a lot of detective work to be done. And if you ask most people are not. They're going to come up with a simple answer, and then not want to have a answer with some subtlety to it. So
I think there's also something to be said about a strain that is so well loved and a strain that has been around for so long. You're talking about like strains from the 60s and 70s that have been cultivated and just, put into repetition and have fed, millions by now, that are just kind of, they're making their way out, and need to be reset, from their originals or whatnot. But we'll have to look back in notes and see where our king kind of came from. And then, Andrew's been doing a lot of breeding with, we try to collect strains, get strains in. A lot of strains are donated to us, and we try to breed them. Andrew does a phenomenal job with that. And then we try to collect all of the information that we possibly can on them, and kind of, commercialize them a little bit and make it to where they're not making as much of a spore load in the grow room. And there's something to be said for that. You're starting out at ground zero with a brand new strain that's coming out of the breeding program. There's a lot. It stands alone, and it's brand new. So there's that too. Mm-hmm. And we've seen a huge, compared to when we first started, we've now seen this huge vigor come into our grow room.
Oh yeah.
Because it's brand new.
Yeah, so. I'm finding that I don't know if it's just the freshness of the strains that we're, because we're breeding those, or if it's the fact that I do have selective pressures in my breeding program that have me focus on aggression, speed, basically combativeness, I guess. So that happens very early in my selection process before I even really see the mushrooms that I'm going to be testing for. I'm testing for something that can grow in a wide range of conditions, and can face enemies, basically, like some contaminants and things like that. So we test for a lot of things like that. So I think there's something to be said for, the freshness aspect, but then also the selection process. Yeah.
And there's a bunch of hobbyists too that are out there doing the same thing that we are. It's just like the pepper breeders and the individuals that do tulips and flowers, mm-hmm. and everything else. You have this love for a thing, and then you're propagating it, cultivating it, saving the seeds. You're culling things out. You're selecting the strongest amount, right? And we see these individuals, or they'll reach out to us, and we're like, yes, we would like to get that strain from you, or we'd like to swap a strain. And then we have this kind of collection.
Well, it's gotten down to the point now where even Jake Howard and I, Jake Howard's at the Mushroom Shop LLC, he and I are trading spore prints. Like, he's sent me 2 different types of spore prints now, because I'm just like, hey, I want to put that in my breeding program. He's like, okay, well, here's the spore prints for it,
Yeah,
so.
and Dr. Duckworth has been, really pushing this whole mycologium idea, and he's going through, and he's really like putting in the time to reach out to people and be like, hey, this is what these guys are doing. Would you care to send something?
Yeah, that reminds me. I was wanting to, every episode that we do, I'd like to make a segment video for it, but I would like to plug that because we get different people that get to pop in with us. So if I may just run into the Mycologium project for a quick moment. Yeah. So we're starting a project. It's called the Mycologium Project. Basically, the way I look at it is, I don't take any grant money or anything else, so it kind of leaves me open, a little bit more free, I guess, to do some things. But what we're really looking to do is find samples of wild mushrooms, especially edible and medicinal. So primarily right now, like oysters, enoki, hericium, hen of the woods, chicken of the woods, things like that. If people will send us samples, either if you don't know how to clone it and you can overnight it with an ice pack or something like that, we're happy to take it, clone it. If we get it cleaned up, I'm happy to send you a block of it or a culture of it. Or if you would rather have something that's in my library, I'm happy to trade strain for strain. What this allows us to do is, it's allowing us to continue this project of bringing genetic stock in from all over the place and preserving it. We're working on right now getting a liquid nitrogen storage system so that we can store samples for 50, 100, whatever years. But as of right now, we're bringing stuff in and slanting things up and bringing them into cold storage, and then testing them for commercial viability as well. And what this hopefully will allow us to do is we don't know enough to know what's helpful and what isn't helpful yet. And we don't know enough to really test all these mushrooms that we see in the wild for medicinal components. So as we learn more about this, we have a strain bank that we'll be able to pull from for over the years and over the regions, and be able to send these things in for testing as we learn better testing methods. But in the meantime, what it does is allows us to get more commercial strains or wild genetic stock and new phenotypes, new, maybe something is able to fight a contaminant better than something else. It allows us to get all of this stuff and bring it out and put it out into the commercial world, for hobbyists and commercial farmers to grow themselves. And of course, if you've already got a lab and you know how to clone mushrooms, you can clone it yourself. And if you have it cloned and you have a proven clone, then I'm happy to just trade strain for strain. Your wild strain for, whatever. And this kind of trading allows us to continue the genetic mix, getting things out there. It allows us to bring in new stock for our breeding program, but we're preserving the original stock with that as well. And so it allows us to, we'll be selling some of the strains, we'll be selling some of the things that are bred from these things, but all of that is used to support the mycologium project, basically.
And the continued research and the storing and
and the testing as we start getting into things.
And it's not just us doing this. Like it's a whole group of individuals that are coming in doing the DNA testing. The people who are going out and searching for this, credit to them too. And it's not to, crap on any particular person that's had a strain for a long time. Like I was talking earlier about well-loved strains. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that the company that is selling it is bad.
We've got a lot of old traditional commercial strains in storage as well.
Yeah, well, that too. And it just means that each thing has its own kind of superpower. And so that's what we're really trying to, we're trying to map that out is what we're really trying to do.
Yep.
So.
And somebody asked if we would be interested in wild reishi cultures. Yes, actually. If you look behind, over Samantha's, her right shoulder is left for you on camera.
Oh.
Those are all reishi bags right there. The side that's facing her is a reishi we found down in Georgia during the Georgia Mushroom Festival. Samantha found that one at a church, so it's called the church reishi for right now. And then on the back side of that, I think, is the river reishi, which Samantha found while she was swimming in the river there at the Georgia Mushroom Festival. And it's funny, we walked all around the festival and found almost no mushrooms. Samantha goes swimming and walking in a church parking lot and finds mushrooms. So, but yeah, we're absolutely into reishi. Reishi is one of our favorites. So we are huge reishi hoarders. So.
Well, and we're finding beautiful colors too. Like there was one that was like pure black.
You want to find one out of go get one out of the hot box.
And then there was one that was yellow.
The golden reishis are some of my favorite. That's the southeastern United States native reishi is the golden reishi, or also known as the yellow reishi, and it's a really beautiful yellow color. Samantha's gonna go grab one out. I've got a hot box that I've built that allows me to grow tropical mushrooms all the way through the wintertime. And then I can put cold air in it during the summertime, and this allows me to test on a small scale tropical mushrooms in the winter and cold weather mushrooms in the summertime. So, but I absolutely, we are really big into reishi and turkey tail. I'm actually collecting turkey tail strains. I can't trade one for one on turkey tails like wild just turkey tail fruit, but if you have turkey tail strains that you have cloned yourself, I can absolutely trade for those. And then we clone attempt to clone every reishi we find, but reishi it's a really hard one to get sterile tissue of sometimes, so there's a few tricks to it. The Canadian National Mycological Herbarium holds over 350,000 fungal and fungal plant disease specimens. Largest fungarium of non-lichenized fungi in Canada. I think they'd share. I don't think that they would, but they might. The question is does it hold 350,000 specimens or 350,000 cultured samples? Because you can an herbarium might be just a fungarium. Sorry, could just be dried tissue. Wow, I can totally see that in my camera. There you go, Samantha. So that's a golden reishi there. That's one that we're trialing out for.
It's not very big yet.
No, it's not very big yet, but that one. Look at the filter patch. What is that one?
RD3.
Oh, that's actually the third Denise reishi.
Ah.
So that's the one Mr. Denise found for us. That's a local specimen then.
What does the R stand for? Oh, reishi.
Reishi.
Sorry. There's no dumb questions, people.
That's right. No dumb questions. Just dumb people. I mean,
Hey.
I didn't say you were dumb.
Can you get the black one?
You want to get the black reishi? That's fine. Yeah, I mean, so this is not one that we found. This is a culture that we bought, which is the black reishi. I know we've talked about Hericium, but somebody talked about reishi, and I have reishi is one of my loves, which we'll get back to that for sure. Lars says, yeah, it's type specimens. I figured that was what it was. What they do is they get type specimens, and then they hold them, usually for taxonomic reasons back in the day. Now they're doing, the DNA sequencing on them, and then they keep a specimen there so that they can continue to test that later. So here's Samantha. It's kind of liquidy, so be careful over your computer.
Field day.
Oh, you just killed it. No, I'm playing. So there's black reishi. We got it growing in an antler form.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I can see it. If you pull it back a little bit, it'll be more in focus.
Right there?
There we go. Yeah. Which it's a beautiful, beautiful mushroom. The blocks get disgusting looking.
Yeah, it's not like it's not the greatest.
No, it's not pretty, but yeah. So that's basically what we're doing with the mycologium. Dr. Duckworth was the guy that came up with the name. I don't know Greek, so but mycologium, basically mushroom archive, mushroom library, and yeah, it's that's what we're trying to do is build a large archive of cultures, not just type specimens. Though we do keep type specimens of wild mushrooms that we find. We send a sample off to be DNA sequenced. Right now we're working with the Ohio Mushroom DNA Lab, so I'm sending him off as many samples as I can. But then there's also the Ava Labs, I can't remember what it's called in Spain. That and hopefully some other projects that we'll be able to get into and get some DNA testing done. They say they keep them in these ways: living slants of sterile mineral oil over freeze drying. Okay, I was like, I'm not going to try to attempt to pronounce that right now. It sounded out, but for sporulating, species liquid nitrogen. So okay, they do keep cultures. It looks like that'd be interesting.
Did you tell him about the fungiflorist?
No, not yet. Yeah, we are going to be sending. So we got a bunch of reishi samples from the summer, and we're sending those off to a guy named the Fungi Florist on Instagram. You guys should check out his work.
Oh,
He's
man.
freaking insane.
It is
Makes
beautiful.
Beautiful reishi artwork. So we're going to be sending him some of these strains off to see what he can do artistically with these new strains that we've pulled in. So all the Denise reishis, Mr. Denise has found us a lot of reishi strains this past summer. And then the church, the river, the what are the other reishi strains we've got?
We've collected.
The pond reishi is one that we got from early on.
But yeah, it's. You guys will come to know them soon, trust me. But yeah, we found a bunch. Other people have donated and found a bunch, and it's just it's neat. I get giddy just thinking about it. And then on top of it, trading all of these, sharing all of these. Yes, selling them, but again, the profits are going toward maintaining this whole project. And then it's spreading it out amongst all of us. That way, if one person loses it, then you've got a backup.
Yeah. Well, that's actually something. I was talking to a friend of mine a while back ago, and yeah, the best way to save a culture is to get it out where people are growing it.
Well, and celebrate it, grow it, feed it to your community. Have your community celebrate it. Like that's what it's about.
Absolutely. All right, so we can get back on Hericium. I just wanted to plug that project. If you guys have an interest in that project, you can always overnight samples here to the shop. Our address is listed on Google, but you can also give us a call if you have any questions about it and get it set up. And then, of course, like I said, when I get things cleaned up, this night walk Hericium, I'm just about to contact the lady that actually found that on the walk, and she was kind enough to let us have a sample, and I got it to clone. So I'm about to contact her and say, hey, I've got some clean. Do you want a kit or liquid culture syringe or whatever? And she didn't even, she was just there. She'd never cultivated mushrooms, so I think she would prefer a kit. But that's, we'll be, like, it takes a few weeks sometimes to get stuff cleaned up and tested that it's verified, but then,
well, I think that's so cool too. Like, I'm so lucky. In my humble opinion, I'm really lucky to be married to Andrew, who does a lot of this stuff. And then I get to jump on board too, and he's been teaching me, and it's becoming a passion of mine. And then, just having the skill set too is useful in so many different and various ways. Yeah. But if I were just going out and hiking and found this cool thing, and I had someone who was willing to clean it up and to do that for me. Like, I think that would be so neat, especially if I could get a couple of kits and, like, give one to my dad that was hiking with me, or we both grow it out together, or, I don't know, I just think it's kind of special and romantic, and which, you're also, here I am loving that Andrew gave me a yeast plate with I love you scratched onto it.
What, that's not romantic?
I just said it was.
No, I know, but it was the one where, what was it? Somebody, whenever we showed
the gift of yeast.
They said, yeah, there's nothing more romantic than a yeast infection.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was. Anyway.
So, Justin says, what is your preferred spacing for your shelving? Vertical PVC spacing and lateral 2x4 spacing. So we don't really have any preferences. What we did was we took the space that we could put a grow room in and then just maximize the amount of shelving we could do. So we ended up going with 7. It's barely taller than a block. So something like, what would that be, like 10 inches? So something like maybe a foot per shelf, because what we wanted to be able to do was put the block in vertically and then turn it, or be able to fruit them vertically if we wanted. But when they're vertical, they've only got about that much space between them and the top shelf. Or
well, it's close enough.
Of the next shelf.
It's close enough too that if it were to tip, that it would catch.
Yep, the back of the block gets caught.
Yeah.
So really, we just measured our blocks and then just as tightly as we could pack them, while making, literally, for between the aisles, we took the largest person that would be working the op, me. And we Ben measured my shoulders and then measured me from belly to back, because I got a big old belly. And it was basically like, I want Andrew to be able to comfortably turn around in the grow room while not knocking mushrooms off the walls.
Well, we also rolled a cart down the aisle too, because, make it easier to pick.
I'm bigger than any cart. But that's how we figured that out, Justin, was we don't have a preferred. We just built it the way we could on to maximize the amount of blocks. So that the grow room holds something like 768 blocks or something like that.
It's also taller than I'm really actually willing to want to pick. So oftentimes I won't plant the top 3 rows.
Yeah, that's
short stack.
We kind of, Samantha prefers, like, I hate going all the way down to the bottom. Big belly, I don't want to bend over all the time, right? So, and Samantha doesn't want to reach all the way to the top. So, if we do fill the grow room, I'm picking from the top, she's picking from the bottom, that kind of thing. So,
halvesies.
Yeah. And then as far as, like, okay, if you're looking at the grow room behind Samantha there, which you can't see super well, but that space was a grow room for a time. From that pillar was wrapped in plastic, and then
it's also sealed.
Yeah, it's sealed with a resin. You guys
can
see it.
Shiny.
Where we live in a historic district, we didn't want to destroy that pillar with wood, so Ben coated it and then took every crack and then injected resin into all of it so that it was protected. And the metal work at the bottom that holds it to the concrete. But that grow room could hold far more blocks, and it's because we were on these rolling shelves, and we could do high-density shelving setup. So that's actually oftentimes a better way to get more blocks in, is to do that kind of wire shelving with the rolling racks. But it's way more expensive than a cart and the wooden PVC shelving. So really, it's just wherever you're starting.
And it was the blocks tipped a little easier because you're fighting in between having the blocks incubating on the shelf. So you do need that kind of where the bag is. You put oxygen in the bag and then you seal it, and so you're stuffing the bag in there. I mean, really just stuffing the bag into the shelving to get it to incubate, and then you're collapsing all that air out when you cut it to initiate it for growth, and you have that head space. It's just there's definitely a fine line to walk there, but
Absolutely.
it saves labor.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's well worth it to buy the shells for the labor saved.
It is. It pays for itself so quickly. Because you're not having to handle the block multiple times. It reduces it by, I think, handling by at least 4 times is what we counted. And that's about half the life of the block. So you basically cut down the amount of handling you do, which cuts your labor down big time.
Also, John has asked, is it 1 inch or 3/4 PVC pipe? That was 1.5.
It's 3/4.
Oh, is it 3/4?
It's only 3/4. You can go in there and look at it right now.
I'm going to double check.
She doesn't believe me, but I'm going to be right. Oh, I'm going to be right. John, you said something about having a love for Tabasco peppers that can tolerate frost. It's not in frame right now, but I have a plant rack. You can see the corner of it there on the screen right. Excuse me. But that is full of peppers right now and some eggplants. I love peppers. Peppers are like my favorite thing to garden. I do tomatoes as much as possible, but my tomato crops are never as good. What is it?
You're right.
I thought
Good
so.
memory.
I knew I was right. But yeah, so we grow a pepper called the Ajvarsky pepper every year, and that pepper is, oh my goodness, so good. It is. We used to grow a pepper called the Melrose pepper, and in fact we still do. We have it growing right now, but it's a thin-skinned, early onset pepper with really stocky, bushy plants. But the Ajvarsky pepper is more like a bell, except way sweeter, way better. Like, it's just way better than any pepper I've ever had.
And it's longer, more
Tapered.
Yeah, more tapered.
We
So
are
you get these
gonna
really
do-
long strips whenever you cut them open and process them.
Oh yeah, and we've always saved seeds from our peppers and like done them year to year or whatnot. But this year I've gotten a variety of seeds from Baker Creek and a couple of other like Victory seeds and whatnot for some heirloom stuff. But we've been learning how to cross peppers. So this year, my plan is to train Samantha on how to cross peppers, and then because she's got really steady hands that can do delicate work really easily, and then have her. We're gonna cross every pepper we're growing, but I don't grow hot peppers typically. It's all sweet. So like we're growing some pimentos and things like that. The big thing though is I've got this pepper called the Lesia pepper. I'm gonna mix that with Melrose and Ajvarsky, and then see how we do. But I'm with you, man, on the peppers for sure. What you got, Samantha?
Just kind of going back to the peppers for a second. The Melrose, it'll fruit like a long season.
Yeah.
Just like it comes in early before anything else, and it lasts longer than anything else.
It's just they're so thin-skinned that you have to peel, or you have to
They are tedious.
de-seed so many to get.
And there's so many seeds.
Yep.
But it is a lovely pepper. And then the Ajvarsky, it's one of my favorites. I actually prefer it over a bell pepper personally, but it ends up coming in just huge waves. So it does take a little bit longer between flushes, I guess. At this point, everything is kind of mushroom related, but it does take longer. But you really, I mean, it just goes all out. Anyway, Havoc, BWR. Hold on, I touched my screen and now it's going bonkers. Maybe you've mentioned this about Bear's Head, but have you seen Wicked Kitchen's Lion's Mane Steaks? What kind of hericium would you suggest for that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, Bear's Head probably would do. Any of them that grow in the really nice globe, I think would be that. It's the cast iron skillet pressed lion's mane steaks.
Golden Mushroom Co. actually has some really awesome videos on their
Yes.
Instagram. We actually got to meet them at OKC, and it was super neat to see his videos and hear him talk about just how fun it was to make those videos. And so even going down to the ASMR from recording the
it's on
sounds of everything
Instagram.
sizzling.
It's funny because I was like, we were talking, we were like a Golden Mushroom Company, and I was like, wait a minute, okay. I was like, dude, you're the one that does all the cooking videos. And he's like, yeah. They were like, yeah, that's me, and I was like, yeah, I love the sound in your videos. Like, they were like, oh, and it was like, oh, they hadn't really gotten that compliment before, but
super humble, really
Yeah.
sweet. It was really awesome to talk to them. They were very open. I mean,
and
it
he
was
runs
just
that
neat.
whole channel on his cell phone.
Yeah.
And
Blew my mind.
and a cell phone mic, and he gets such good. So most people don't realize this about video work. Video work is actually more about audio work than it is video work. People will watch a shitty video with good audio quality, but people will not watch an amazing video with shitty audio quality, right? So, which means I actually need to pay more attention to probably the way I sound right now. But the thing is like his video, like the sound, like I knew he had to be going in and post and stuff and doing it, and he was talking about how, as the guy was doing stuff, they would go through and they would hold the mic up to it and you just get really good sound effects to it. So, but Golden Mushroom Company, or Golden Mushroom Co., all one word, on Instagram. You guys should check out his cooking videos. They've done those steaks, the BAM chicken sandwiches, which are the lion's mane chicken sandwiches that are basically cooked the same way. It's absolutely just gorgeous.
Well, and it's neat too to share the recipes, but also sharing, going to festivals like that and getting to meet everybody and sharing the tips and tricks on how you do things and how do you do that, and oh yeah, I do it this way, and then everybody gets excited and they share it back and forth. And like we did a commercial with Amici, and man, I miss those guys. But like Mark, Chris's dad, came and he did a big tour and some videography here, and he taught Andrew a lot of stuff. So it's just neat to have those exchanges, but. Anyway, kind of got off topic, got excited, wanting to brag on everybody.
Well, no, I mean, that's what I like about this community, right? I knew this would happen, too. People, I don't know if you remember, Samantha, when we started having mentorships come in, and they were always worried about, other mushroom farms popping up. And we were just like, well, try not to be worried, you just find your own niche, that kind of thing. And now I'm starting to see, people are starting to fill other niches around mushroom cultivation. Like, it's not everyone now has to be the local cultivator. Some guys can be, just trying to figure out how we fix this wonderful food source that has not been an American tradition, for very long.
At least in the modern sense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then you got supply. I mean, like, we've got agaricus. So, I mean, like, I guess the European tradition, of agaricus mushrooms, porcinis with more Italian and French cooking, but it's but then you also have people doing suppliers, and you have people doing educational stuff, and then people doing podcasts, and just you've got all this stuff popping up, genetics and whatnot. It's just yep, love it. So what?
Just Oaken Sword jumped on. He's got the emoji. I think it's like
it's like somebody
a guy going
like
this.
hey.
A guy going, or a girl, whoever, whatever. But
Yeah, Oaken Spore's in the house.
oh man. Oh, and
hey, Jacob Howard.
Yeah.
Same, I need the enoki. That's right. He wants you to make an enoki long sleeve.
So I'm going to make it. Also, I'm having to go through and kind of work with the person, with the company that fulfills all our stuff. We are kind of out of a few sizes, the 2XL and some other things. So I'm going to go back through and choose some different shirts. My favorite are the super soft ones, like the organic cotton and the, stuff like that. So I'm going to have to go through and kind of choose maybe a different brand of shirt, but we'll get there, and I will get that long sleeve out for you, I promise.
I need to reorder my sweatshirt. I have lost my MCM monogram hoodie. So somebody out in the world, probably in Oklahoma City, has my nice MCM, and they probably don't even know what it is.
You probably left it on the airplane.
Thankful. I probably did. So somebody's got this nice MCM hoodie, and they're just like, "Well, this is a cool design, whatever," Anyways,
represent. We're about to make that symbol so recognizable.
I hope so.
The MCM family.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this. Hey guys, like it, share it, comment it, subscribe it. Oh, I've got that position right over your face, too. Dang it.
What?
I
What'd
bet
you
I
do?
can move that.
What am I doing?
Nothing. Hey, watch this, guys. Bam! Now it's on the right side. Yeah. I did that. I made this for you.
I made this for you. Well, and I mean, honestly, Oak and Spore has a lot to say, I'm sure, about what they can bring into their area as far as strains. Like, you guys are pretty limited, aren't you, on what you can bring into New Zealand? I know whenever we sent something and Jackie,
Oh my gosh. the New
Jackie
Zealand
forgot the
attempt.
phytosanitary certificate.
Yeah.
And they were like, "You do this again, you're out. You can't say."
Yeah, New Zealand was not kind.
Blacklisted.
Yeah, they were like, this is your one and only F up. You do not. And we were. It was something that was allowed in the country. Even it just we forgot the phytosanitary certificate, and they checked. So
Yeah, we've got to make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's for sure. But yeah, and wasn't it UT that carries one of the strains that he can use?
say it again.
Isn't it UT that carries one of the strains that he can use or can have in?
UT, like University of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Oh well, never mind then.
Oh, yes.
Ha!
Yes, I remember this conversation now. You were bringing up something from the depths.
I remember everything.
Well,
Ask everyone else.
she does. She's got the memory of an elephant. You know.
Wow, that's cool. He said yes, but our Ministry for Agriculture is going to approve all of the Pleurotus austratus strains, which is good. That is awesome news.
Dude.
Also, hello, Catherine. Thanks for joining us again.
Hey, Catherine. Dude, Oak, it's for that is so cool.
So yeah,
That's-
the Fungarium in Tennessee holds the epitope of austratus.
Fungarium in Tennessee
Austriatus.
holds the epithet of Austriatus. Okay, that's right. That was you were having a test against that specimen, and apparently nothing would because we know nothing about taxonomy, and so and oysters are not oysters are not oysters are not oysters. Everything is so screwed up in the world of mushroom DNA. I have a sneaking suspicion that there's not like there's like 15 billion oyster mushroom species and Hericium species, or like one that just all gets around.
Dang.
What's that, babe?
So he says, so the original culture, and that's the only one approved for import. Now they're relaxing. It's not just the epitope; it's all hybrids. So can we send you everything we got?
It does sound like he'll be able to actually get some of our strains for.
Dude, you could try out watercolor and some.
Oh, yeah.
And some well, no, not. Never mind. You can't do Hericiums. Dang it! That's what this video is about.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I need to stop getting distracted. I get excited about all the things and then go bonkers.
Well, I understand. I do the same thing, and you know, my ADD ends up carrying me wide and far. Speaking of which, why don't we check out another one of tonight's sponsors, shall we?
Introducing the future of mycology, Dr. Silurian's Elixir of Mycelial Mastery. This isn't your average culture mix, it's a revolution in a packet, crafted for the dedicated cultivator seeking unparalleled growth. Experience the visual alchemy of this masterful brew. As you mix 10 grams with 500 milliliters of water, watch the solution transform into a rich, amber spectacle, the hallmark of a nutrient-dense sanctuary for your burgeoning mycelium. This is where vibrant color meets vibrant life, setting our elixir apart from the ordinary clear liquid cultures. Prepare to be captivated. Mix 10 grams of Dr. Silurian's elixir with 500 milliliters of water, add a stir bar for thorough integration, and sterilize the blend at 15 psi for 45 minutes. Once cooled, introduce your favorite culture into this perfectly prepared, nutrient-rich environment. Watch in awe as the elixir works its magic, unveiling a mycelial masterpiece before your eyes. Choose Dr. Silurian's Elixir of Mycelial Mastery for a mycological adventure that's as visually enchanting as it is potent.
And we're back. So, Dr. Solarian's elixir of mycelial mastery. Get some. It's good stuff.
Which thank you guys. We got some orders for it, and I'm going to be fulfilling those tonight. So that's what this coffee is for. I'm going to be pulling one heck of a lab session. So Andrew too, but
Oh yeah, we've got. You guys have been hammering us with orders, which thank you. That puts shoes on my kids' feet and a roof over my head. So
pays all our basics. Yep. Electric bill,
insurance, so that I can continue living. Those kinds of things. I appreciate you all.
But yeah, Tom, I mean, congratulations to be a mushroom farm during such honestly, a historical.
That's a historical opening
event,
up.
Yeah. I mean,
New Zealand is very protective, and they should be, of their biodiversity.
Yeah.
I mean, they have such a unique ecosystem. In a way, I'm glad that they're slow dripping it, but in another way, it is frustrating. Did you have anything to do with it, Tom? Did you get to talk to them and work through the process with them? I'm interested to know if you actually got to work with legislators. Oh my God, Tom! when they open up, we mail you the cultures. You get them in the grow room. As soon as they're in the grow room, we're out ready to pop. I fly down there. We do a video together. Yeah, I like this. I like this a lot.
You just want to go visit Tom.
I want to go to New Zealand and walk the Hobbit path, Anyways, back to Hericiums. We got about a little bit 10 more minutes. So I really want to make sure that if anybody's got any questions about Hericium, go ahead and throw them down really fast. If you've already asked a question and it hasn't been answered, throw it down now. We're going to do a rapid-fire Q&A for the next 10 minutes. And then Samantha and I are going to go sit in the sauna, and then I'm going to bed. So cue those things up. I guess I should have warned you before. Oh, goodness. Samantha's laughing. What do you got? Tell me this must be good.
He said, in support, yes, we will go to the pub, daily.
Wait, daily or daily we'll go to the pub?
I don't think Australian daily.
No, okay. I'm hoping he didn't spell it Australian daily, so I'm okay with that. I never drink in America, but if we go there, I'll go to a Brit culture and hit the pub. Pubs sound like a good place to go. Thank you, Vance. I appreciate it. I do think Dr. Solarian is a very good sponsor. He's a very good friend of ours. Ever since we made him. For those of you guys who don't know, Dr. Solarian is the name of my AI chatbot that I've built. That is the thing that helps me write my YouTube descriptions and Instagram posts and things like that. So I basically speak to it and here's my heartfelt stuff, and then rewrite it for me, please. And it rewrites it, and then I'm like, I don't like this. Rewrite it this way, and then Dr. Solarian makes things all right. So. He's a
sound more like a Victorian mad scientist, please, and then it will adjust.
Exactly.
But it is really neat, and I've joked for years. I was like, we need mascots. We need to be, we need these characters that kind of represent all the different aspects of the mushroom business and growing, and be a company with character. That's kind of something that. So here we are, Dr. Solarian.
There you go. Yeah. Elixir of mycelial mastery. I'm big into it. So apparently people are saying so pubs are better overseas than the States.
Well, Manly Mushrooms said, "Come to Australia. I'll show you a pub." Dude, I'm sorry, Manly, but I'm halfway afraid to see what a pub looks like in Australia.
Are you kidding me? Australia sounds like my kind of place. Other than the fact that you guys got rid of all your guns.
Well, the drinks kill you.
No, but everything else will, right?
Yeah.
The drinks are what keep you alive when everything else is trying to kill you, right?
Good point.
It's kind of like the drunk guy that gets thrown from the car and he walks away with no
Back to Hericiums.
Oh, yeah, that's right, guys. I'm sorry. We're
getting too playful and excited. This is kind of what happens.
Well, you can tell that's why I'm getting giddy, right? So it's getting late for me. Question. Clear, sticky liquid sometimes from Hericium. What do you think is the cause? It's a metabolite. It's a mixture of metabolite and Hericium. Some metabolites can be really quite slick and sticky feeling. Chestnut, enoki, namiko, and some Hericiums will really produce a sticky, gelatiny kind of metabolite.
So not only is it an excellent cleaner, it's an excellent glue.
Yeah. Actually, the Hericium, the metabolites from Hericium actually will literally strip everything off your floor except paint. It's amazing. Let's see. The good doctor was spawned. I like that, spawned. He was not made. He was spawned. Good frog terminology. Watching those aerated LC videos has made me want to try LC to bulk. Maybe buy one of those wine demijohns for it, just because it would look too cool. I agree. So we're planning on doing a 5-gallon batch at some point, because I can get a 5-gallon carboy in my 150-liter autoclave. So I'm going to put it in there and then inoculate it and then pump air through it. And I want to do a test to see how far a needle biopsy, an almost microscopic sample, injected into 5 gallons of LC and then aerated, how long it takes it to fill the container. So we're gonna have some fun with it for sure. You have bears. Camping is an extreme sport in the U.S. Yeah, I didn't think about that. They don't have bears and stuff, so camping like bears don't really do much. I don't know about Western bears, but like I've met so many bears in the wild that they usually are more scared of you than you are of them. I'm bigger than most black bears, actually. So if you're about my size, I'm 6 foot, 280, 285.
Don't underestimate the bears. They may be
don't get me
small
wrong.
but mighty.
They're smaller than me, but they're way stronger than me. Like I'm not saying that they couldn't whip me, but are metabolite compounds being explored? Didn't metabolites help bees fight off mites? Yeah, so metabolites are being explored in a lot of different ways. Paul Stamets was the one that helped show that metabolites help bees survive colony collapse disorder. And then there is Trad Cotter of... I have forgotten the name of his mushroom company name now. He used to be in Liberty, South Carolina, but Trad Cotter runs basically different mushrooms through spawn, right? While it's in the spawning phase, he'll inject a culture like E. coli or some other pathogenic bacteria. And then when the mycelium starts exuding metabolite to kill that, he then will suck up that metabolite and test it to see A, what it is, and B, he'll do what I'm guessing he's doing are potency tests where you soak a cloth wafer, sterilized cloth wafer in your in your metabolite or soap or whatever you're trying to test, and you put it in a ring around a dish, all these little round pieces of fiber with the different materials soaked up in it, different liquids, antibiotics, etc. And then you put your E. coli sample in the middle, and as it grows out, you'll see these rings form around those discs where the E. coli won't grow. And so he's testing to see, how effective are these metabolites at fighting E. coli. And then the question is, can we either use that as internal medicine, or is there some sort of way that we can take this to the medical field? So there's at least 2 different ways that I know that metabolites are being tested. But I think people are testing metabolites, like mass-producing metabolites in a vat culture, like farming is what they call it, PHARMING. And they'll do the vat culture, take these metabolites, and then put them to tree roots to protect them from other fungal organisms and diseases. So that kind of thing. And then we have... I've been chased by a bear. Well, yeah, they definitely will chase, for sure. You shouldn't have gone poking it. Need to go get the kids for daycare, take care team. See you land in New Zealand. Hey, Andrew. Absolutely, Tom. For sure. I considered it karma. I shot a deer as I was walking back. I was met by, mama bear with baby bears. Yeah, absolutely. Mushroom Mountain. Thank you, Prada. Andrew, Sam, I sent an email to the Canadian National Mycological Herbarium asking if it would be possible to arrange an exchange between MCM and them. Can't hurt, eh? Well, thank you. I appreciate you doing that. We'll see what they've got. I know UT was actually pretty willing to work with me after I started talking to him and getting them some polypore samples. So I like his book. Trad Cotter's book is I used to have that, and then I think I sent it home with one of my employees, one of my former employees, and they never brought it back, and then they quit, and then never brought it back. So I stopped allowing my books go out. But it is a good book. He's got some very interesting novel things in there that neither Paul Stamets nor Radical Mycology is Peter McCoy. I don't think they don't really touch on either one of those things. Metabolites indicative of contamination are not really. No, metabolites are also a digestive enzyme, so it could just be that they're. You'll see a lot of heavy metabolites on a food source that the mushrooms aren't really used to, or some strains just produce heavy amounts of metabolites. They're like heavy feeders. And then contamination will oftentimes also have a heavy amount of metabolites. So it's not just a contamination thing, but it can be a contamination thing. Stamets will be the guy who will allow mushrooms to compost him once he passes. Oh, dude, that's how I do all my victims. I'm just playing.
Andrew. What a thing to say.
You're very welcome, Eric. If anything, metabolites are a sign that they're fully colonized and eaten the substrate. Absolutely, Lars. That's kind of what I've seen as well. Is whenever it's just kind of exuded a bunch of metabolite and just left it there, it's oftentimes the block is getting old.
And I've noticed that different strains and different types will have lighter, almost clear metabolites, whereas in Hericium sometimes I'll notice like a darker, more golden liquid.
Yeah.
So it just kind of.
Though sometimes I've seen with Hericium,
as long as it's not cloudy and white.
As long as it's not black, it's usually pretty safe. Like if you start seeing like a really black, that could just be the Hericium getting old. So Hericium in liquid culture turns the liquid culture very dark, like a brown and then almost a black. So, the Hericium will go take an amber liquid culture, turn it to a pale yellow as it eats up the sugars, and then as it sits there, it starts to turn a brown and then a black. And then I've got a jar of Hericium that looks like mud. It literally just looks like mud. And people will not believe me when they see it, and they're like, that's got to be contaminated. And it's like, no, it's really thick by a liquid culture of, is it mammoth tusk? I think that's that thick. And you pull that stuff out and you squirt that really thick mud into a bag of grain spawn, and it colonizes almost instantly. It's like crazy. So metabolites can mean a bunch of things. Really, just as in your grain spawn, as long as it's not black, I think it's fine. Orange is fine. Yellow is fine. Reddish is fine. Let's see.
And I mean, it's in the cosmos. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I'm not gonna try. It's in the beauty industry.
Cosmetology.
By like cosmetics, but cosmeceutical. Ignore me.
Cosmeceuticals.
I think that's right. I always mispronounce
Cosmetaceuticals.
everything.
I don't know.
Thank you for making me feel better.
You're welcome. Keep going.
I know what you're doing.
I'm trying.
But yeah, it's Aveeno is actually putting in some pretty amazing, super cool research in all of this as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of cosmetics companies using reishi spores and fungal metabolites.
They have shiitake in their Aveeno Positively Ageless line.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the pre-workout powders. Dr. Jekyll, in its signature formula, used to, I don't know if it still does, it used to have lion's mane in it. So, I mean, they're using all these things for all kinds of, it's creeping into products everywhere. Let's see, we're actually past the hour, so I'm going to finish these last questions, and then I'm going to...
We couldn't help ourselves.
We couldn't. Okay, I can grow more all day long in my climate, but Hericium will get to a baseball size and just stop. I can't get them bigger than that. If you slow down your airflow, you might be able to get them a little bit bigger. Sometimes that helps. Any thoughts on Hericium for its medicinal, Any thoughts on Hericium for its medicinal properties? Have you seen any good studies on its use for Alzheimer's or dementia? Not on Alzheimer's or dementia, but I have seen one good mouse study, rodent study, on memory performance, and that was enhanced It was, and then there was one that was a human trial. I think that was also cognitive, and that one showed positive effects. Both studies showed that erinacines by themselves, so lion's mane, is not as effective as mixing erinacines and hericinones. Hericinones are found all throughout different hericiums, and erinacines are only found in true lion's mane. Again, like I said earlier in the show, it's coming to find out that the taxonomic situation with lion's mane is a nightmare. So many strains, I think, that have been tested in these studies, unless they were using purified erinacines or something like that, if they were using like an actual mushroom fruit body supplement, a lot of lion's mane that we thought were lion's mane, that we were sure were lion's mane, have DNA tested not lion's mane and contain no active erinacines whatsoever. So, however, the good news is that a mixture of hericinones seems to be the most effective. It was the most effective mix in the rodent study, and it was the most effective mix in the human study. And they saw statistically significant increases in cognitive performance and memory performance. As far as dementia and Alzheimer's, I haven't seen any good research on that just yet. There might be some, but I haven't seen it yet. There's a lot of newer studies that are coming out pretty rapid fire right now. But pretty positive if you're improving memory and you're improving cognition, then it's probably a good bet that you're helping fight dementia and Alzheimer's is my guess. It used to be, I felt like the science for hericiums were pretty bunk. And that was based on a lot of the studies just were not well done studies. But now there are some studies coming out that are well done. There's not many of them, and there's not long-term ones yet, but they're getting there. So I'm pretty excited about it. I don't think that you should just take it just because it's good for you necessarily, but you maybe give it a try and see how it goes for you. Talk to your doctor, that kind of thing. I don't give medical advice. So, all right. Mine's gone brownish. I was worried, but somewhere in the back of my mind I recalled Andrew saying that's what it does. Yeah, the Hericium turns liquid culture brown for sure. I think that lion's mane death is due to the flies. I don't know if you mentioned that.
I've
what do you
seen
think?
it in grain in the lab. We don't have any fruit flies in there at all. So I don't know.
The Black Death, I don't think it comes from flies because it, like Samantha said, we've seen it in grain spawn and stuff before. Mahalo for your wisdom. Aloha, you beautiful people. Well, thank you, Vance. Aloha to you as well. That means goodbye, right? Or I don't remember what mahalo means. I'm sorry. How long is liquid culture
Goodbye
to bulk?
and hello.
Huh?
I think it's goodbye and hello.
I think aloha is goodbye and hello, but I don't know what mahalo means. How has liquid culture to bulk substrate been working? Do you use that ever, or grain spawn or sawdust? I don't use it a lot. I've played around with it. Certain species do better than others. Enoki and Hericium work great bulk from liquid culture to bulk substrate. If you want to use oysters or something like that, like chestnuts, you need to finagle your substrate with something easier to eat. So either a pocket of grain that can be distributed in later, or use straw instead of sawdust. That's really the only two ways I've really seen it work well. Absolutely welcome, Chris. Piopino mushrooms, I had like zero luck with it. Yeah, Piopinos are not an easy mushroom to grow. Sword Belt's a lot easier strain to grow than most of the others. The Fat Man is probably the hardest strain to grow I've come across. But it's absolutely worth it when you can get it to work, because it is the most delicious of like all the mushrooms. It's like somewhere between a portobello and a wine cap or something. It's amazing. I'm going to start growing a lot more pink oysters and make chips to sell at farmers markets. I think it's a great idea. The shiitake does have a lot of science behind it, particularly heart health. So does oysters. Oysters do too.
Vance said it's thank you.
Do what?
I said Vance said it's thank you. Mahalo.
Oh, awesome. Well, mahalo.
And then...
Do they keep their pink color when they are dried, or do they turn... So yeah, pink oysters can keep some of their pink color when they're dry, but they don't keep it when they're cooked. And If you've been growing for years in the same location and find wild mushrooms growing within a half a mile, what could be the odds that it came from your grow up? I don't know, but I will tell you that golden oyster has never been found in Tennessee before until this past summer. And it was found within a half a mile of our shop on a log in the wild. And it's now our house oyster. If you order gold oyster from us, it is now the gold oyster you get. But
it was harvested in the wintertime at like 40 degrees.
was it 40? Yeah, okay, that's right. It was getting the cooler weather. But it definitely could be an escapee. I'm not sure. We'll see. Well, it could just be that golden oyster has grown in Tennessee in small numbers and nobody's seen it before. So, I guess, let's see. Well, it looks like we've kind of hit the end of the questions, and we are past time, and my timer has gone off. So, what's that, baby?
He said, my dogs only eat dried pinks, no other varieties. And then Catherine said, I don't think dogs are supposed to eat mushrooms. So we actually had a dog food company that contacted us. But we also had a customer at the farmer's market that she kept buying kits from us, and her dog kept eating her kits.
Dogs eat mushrooms all the time.
Not kids, kits.
Right. So from what I can tell you, our dogs, Truffle was trained on morels, and good luck ever getting a morel ever again.
From Truffle.
Yeah, from Truffle. So she would go, and then she would roll in the patch, and then she would gobble up every piece she could. I've had lots of dogs have mushrooms. It's I don't know what the vets say or dog nutritionists say, but I mean I know that we've had dog food companies call us wanting dried mushrooms to add into their dog food. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Foxes have been documented intentionally tripping on shrooms wild. So have squirrels. Squirrels do too. Squirrels actually have a very interesting. They can eat some poisonous mushrooms, or some mushrooms that to us are so spicy we could never eat them. And those squirrels are able to just eat them just fine. So, but all right, folks. Well, Samantha, you ready to call it?
Yeah.
We're tapping out, folks.
It's 10 p.m.
Yep, it's time for bed. So, I appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. Yeah, we're out of our coffees and drinks and things that kept us going, so we're heading off. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening, and I guess just as always, y'all remember, keep spawning.
Keep spawning culture.
Let's try that one more time. And remember, y'all, keep spawning culture. There we go. I think I was off last time. I don't think you were. I think it was me.
Shame on you.
Shame on me.